Welcome in, everybody, to another great episode of the Dynasty Brews podcast. As usual, is your two favorite neighborhood Justins here to talk fantasy football with you. Cheers, brother. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yourself?
Fantastic. I bowled a 160 today, and we're doing pretty good in our league. Well, we were near the bottom, so we're not at the bottom anymore. So we're feeling pretty good. But yeah,
I joined a bowling club in middle school, and I was absolutely terrible. And somehow at the end of it all, I got worse. So bowling is more of a comedic experience for me when I go.
Well, it's one of the few sports where I can be drinking the entire time, so I enjoy it all the time. I am like 100%. I'm like, bowling leagues? Let's do another one? Yeah, let's do this year round? Fuck yeah. It's kind of like golf to me, golf in the wintertime.
It's like the opposite of golf, though, because like when I suck at golf, I get really mad. But when I stink at bowling, I'm just like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, regardless, you're having a lot of fun, and most of the time you're drinking a lot of beer.
Exactly.
So I love those kind of sports. They are my favorite. But we are here to talk about fantasy football. We just had the draft, and we have a special treat. We are on the clock right now with Dynasty Mad's draft. All right. So, Justin, walk us through what you've been doing in this draft. Obviously, we can't see it too well, but kind of tell us what your team looks like right now.
All right. So this is a contract league that I helped pick up an orphan from a fellow nerd member. And so pretty much it's been quite the ride. Headed into the draft, I only had Aaron Rodgers, and I used to have Tyreek Hill, and I had Juju. I had everyone else but those two. So essentially I traded down to the 106. I was hoping to get Kenny Pickett there. He's going anywhere between 103 and 106. Did not happen, but I was at the 101. This was a pretty awful team. So I traded down. I netted the 106 and I netted the 110 in that trade. Because it's a contract league, you have to have 20 players. I have a good, healthy salary cap, but I'm trying to use the draft picks to fill my roster out because they're cheap, typically like an NFL team. So what I did there, the way the board fell, Breece Hall, consensus 101. You would agree with that, even though we don't necessarily love him?
I mean, how can you not like the spot that he went? Rest in peace, Michael Carter's status at this point. But yeah, of course, Breece Hall, New York Jets, run scheme. He's going to fit in perfectly there. We both don't really like the talent, but you can't deny the spot.
Exactly. The other half's opportunity. He's going to get plenty of it, I think. Then you have Kenneth Walker, Kenny Pickett, Drake London, Garrett Wilson, who, my two top tier players that I want to get after Breece Hall are really Wilson and then not Treylon Burks, but Wilson and Pickett make up my top three. So based on the way the board fell, would you have gone Treylon Burks here, or would you have looked another way? Like, Sky Moore feels like a trap to me. I know a lot of people love his film going into the draft, so I'm not going to dog those guys, but I wasn't terribly impressed, and I'm surprised he's not going higher in this draft, going at 109 here.
So, couple questions. Where did George Pickens end up falling? I think he ends up falling to you at 10. If
he does, he's my number one receiver headed into the draft, and I love his landing spot.
Yeah, I mean, and I love his landing spot on this board. Number 10, if you can get George Pickens, an uber talent who has tons to learn from around him, talk about learning from a good route technician, Deontay Johnson, at the end of the day, he's got all the ability to make it in the NFL. So George Pickens, I like that he fell to 10. I think it would have been a reach at 4. Treylon Burks. See, I have my reservations about Treylon Burks. Obviously, the opportunity is there, but how much of the opportunity are we really talking about here? Like AJ Brown, he was
an opportunity, right?
Yeah, I mean, you expect it to be a good amount of opportunity, but AJ Brown was good there, but he was never like over the top fantastic. He, in my opinion, he never made the return on his ADP. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. He also was always a late breakout star. I think he's going to, people are assuming that he's going to flourish in that Philadelphia system. I think we talked last week. I just don't see that happening. Not until the second half of the season. I think we're going to unfortunately see. I, I'm projecting in my projections. I'm gonna slot Jalen Hurts in for 12 games. I think that's a sticky situation. I don't trust it. I don't trust the arm talent there. People want to compare. Well, Josh Allen got better as he got. There's only one Josh Allen, and
Mm,
let's not forget, like, Jalen Hurts has been playing top tier level quarterback for quite a while. I
yep.
don't feel like there's the ceiling there that was there with Josh Allen, who was so raw as a prospect. I think we just know what Jalen Hurts is at this point.
And at this, and we've talked about this before. Never search out the outliers because most of the time you won't find them. If you're looking at Malik Willis, if you're looking at Jalen Hurts, if you're looking at all these guys and you're trying to compare him to Josh Allen, why Josh Allen was a freakazoid was because he could throw 80 yards at his pro day. Like,
And not only that, like, people didn't really start buying Josh Allen until year two, but like I did buy Josh Allen after year one because I saw it. Like, I saw the talent pop off I saw him hit his terrible receivers in stride for like 80-yard touchdowns. I haven't seen Hurts do that and mechanically and throwing wise. He's great he can run the ball, but he's not Michael Vick, so that's not a thing. Like, he's good. But yeah, so that's my problem with that trade they did. Now, the reason I went Burks here wasn't because I'm a huge fan of Burks. The way the board fell, I just feel like 106 is kind of a tier of its own. After 101, I think you could shuffle around based on what I've been seeing. Any pick between 2 and 6.
so here's one for you. It's not your pick, but the pick right after number 10, James Cook. That is a guy who has gone, his value has gone off the freaking rails at this point. Yeah. I don't know how to address this. Guys, James Cook is a little bit better than Devin Singletary in the Devin Singletary areas, and he's a much better pass catcher. But we're not taking away goal line carries from Josh Allen here.
Not only that, I'm going to get crucified from Bills fans. Are we so sure they're going to cut Zach Moss?
No, we're not. We're not sure they're going to cut him.
I mean, I might trade like a 4th-round pick for Moss strictly for vulturing touchdowns.
I might 4th-round pick for Moss. You might even be giving him way too much value at that. But I think you could probably trade Josh Reynolds for Zach Moss at this point.
I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to hit, but especially in best ball formats, that's a bet I'm willing to take. I don't view James Cook as going to be a goal line back, like you said. Singletary's not it. And I just don't think they want to give Josh Allen the carries. So maybe we'll see them, pull off some free agent signing for like a bulldozer. But I feel like 111's a little rich. I tried trading up to get him at 201 in one other spot, but I couldn't. 201's kind of the spot for me. I'll take it. I can risk a 2. I can't risk a 1. Whereas Pickens, I would take as high as 108, to be quite honest.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can see Pickens being in that. Let's say the most I'm willing to risk on a Pickens pick is 106. And as far back as where I would be like, this needs to happen is probably like 112. Like, he is firmly in my mind a 1st-round pick just based off of where he landed.
And the best thing is like the biggest concern people have had about this guy has been his character flaws.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a coach that kind of reeled in Antonio Brown. Now, my questions about that are strictly, when did Antonio Brown when did that kind of go off the rails? It's kind of funny. Did he start going off the rails when they started losing, or like, I'm trying to remember what happened, but there was definitely a point in time. It was like when Juju was there, right? When he was no longer the number 1.
Right.
So,
well, yeah, I mean, that was right about the time when Juju started picking up steam. You're absolutely right. But just to tack on to what you're saying, just to continue with that, Pittsburgh is really, really good at picking wide receivers, but they're also like, they always go after the wide receivers that kind of are perceived as more diva-like. Like, you even look at Claypool last year. Claypool was crucified I don't remember what the game was, but they got a first down and he was celebrating and the clock was running. I think they were under 2 minutes. And he was celebrating, running out the clock. And everybody was just like, what is wrong with Claypool? Like, why is he being a diva at this point? Why is he fucking going excessive on his celebrations? So you look back at some people like that. You look at Le'Veon Bell. You look at all these guys that obviously are very, very talented, and Pittsburgh could recognize that. But they always kind of have like a little attitude to them. But sometimes the edge is what makes you a better team or makes you a better player. And it makes you somebody to really add on to the team. Like Terrell Owens is a Hall of Famer. He would have been, I mean, fantasy was around back then, but I wasn't involved in it. He was a Hall of Famer for fantasy owners too. You know what I mean? He was always a diva on the field. Randy Moss had his diva years. These are type of guys that, they think their shit doesn't smell. But it's because for a good reason, because they're really fucking good.
Yeah,
and
they're just exactly. I mean, that's the type of people they are. The really good players, unfortunately, tend to be divas. I feel like, especially at the receiver position.
Well, it's because they know it. They know it.
Yeah. Now, one thing I want to joke. I don't want to throw this dude under the bus, but how have you done any rookie drafts yet?
I've only done one.
Where these quarterbacks are going is laughable. Outside of Pickett, I cannot get behind a Matt Corral at 112.
That's what I was going to say next.
Or Willis. It's laughable. I mean, I liked Willis, but like we both knew he had flaws. Like, this is actually the latest I've seen him go. I've seen him go at the 112, like a Willis. And I'm like, I'll take Willis at like 2.6. That's kind of where my grading is. It's like, I'll take a shot because I think Tannehill's got some going on there mentally, possibly. But the other guys, I mean, out of those three, how would you rank them? I know you're going to probably have Willis last.
No. Actually, out of those three, Willis is my number 2. Here's something for you. Sam Howell went to Washington, right?
Yeah, I'm out on Sam Howell, but continue.
So here's my lone argument for Sam Howell. Carson Wentz's contract is completely voidable next year. Like to a point where they can drop him and have $0 tacked on to their cap as dead cap. So I look at that and I go, if the Carson Wentz experiment doesn't go right, take it as it is. He could have a good year, but Ron Rivera has always been a coach that's, for the team first. And he's got all these issues coming back from his Eagles days of not being necessarily the team leader. If that happens, what if Sam Howell gets a shot? And I look at all the situations. Corral has maybe the best one because Sam Darnold is garbage. He's hot garbage right away. Then you got Ritter. He's got a deal behind Mariota. I feel like Arthur Smith is more of a Mariota guy. He could not necessarily like a full season Mariota guy, but he can respect the veteran quarterback a little bit longer than maybe Matt Rule would. And then you've got Malik Willis, who you have a bona fide QB1 last year. You have a guy to learn off of. But Sam Howell's right there, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, that might be a very interesting pick. And I'm seeing him as a 3rd-round pick in your draft.
He is a 3rd-round pick.
Whoever drafted him, I'm like, he might know something.
Nah, man, I cannot get behind the Sam Howell love. Even on his highlight reel tapes, I've done pretty well with my rookies, great quarterbacks. I mean, I'm very happy with the way I've seen it. Even on Sam Howell's highlight reel throw, there's one throw where he steps in the pocket and throws like a laser. The ball's thrown inside, but the ball should have been thrown at his back shoulder. I mean, people want to drool over this guy as a prospect, but I just don't see anything on film that makes me think he's it. And the people that had him as their 101, I just never saw it. I've only been doing this for 3 years, so who knows? I'm not flawless by any means, but I had Pickett as 1 and 2 with Willis. I could have gone either way.
You had him as 1. You had him as 1. You love Pickett,
but I mean, at the end of the day, I just don't see it for Howell. And my brother gives me a lot of grief for this. We got in an argument over lunch on Sunday. Not an argument, but we were just debating. And I just said, I think Washington's going to be a sneaky team in the East. I actually am picking Washington to win that division this year. That's my sneaky peek of the year. and that
Yeah.
division's chock full of garbage. So they could still make the playoffs with Carson Wentz and not win their division. That's kind of where I'm at with them. This is the best Washington team that I have seen since they had Kirk Cousins, because they've had garbage at the quarterback position since then.
Yep. Yeah, I can't deny that. This is definitely the best Washington, the most formidable Washington team that, you know, we've seen in a long time. All they need is to get that defense right. Chase Young needs to get back, and they need to get after it. But here's my thing, and I agree with you, because here's the thing. NFC West has been one of the most unreliable divisions. I think it's gone on almost a decade, maybe more, of not having back-to-back champions there. So obviously there's room for somebody to slide in there, and I think any one of them could do it. Here's my thing with Sam Howell. I liked Sam Howell coming out, and I'm going to tell you why. I don't think he can make all the throws, but I think he's a good adjuster. I think he is somebody who went from having Daz Newsome, went from having Javonte Williams, went from having Michael Carter, went from having, I can't remember the other wide receiver. Oh, De'Ami Brown.
De'Ami,
and having a great attack all over the field, to having just about nothing short of like what he had. He literally had a short game to this season's offense. Like, this offense went from being able to attack all levels of the field to he was lucky if he could get a deep ball off. So when I looked at, you know, his tape, I gave him a little bit of credit, because year to year he made his adjustments and he still made this team, you know, function at a high level. So when I look at him, I go, this is a guy who can maybe even adapt to an NFL offense. And I think he could be somebody who you could get behind for a couple games, and who you can maybe get behind for a season, and he can help you win a division. But
you know what's funny is we can have this debate right now. Actually, you want to know who I would take over Sam Howell?
Matt Corral?
Nope, not Sam Howell. I'll give you one more guess.
Is it rookie class or overall?
Rookie class. Yep.
You would probably take Bailey Zappi over Sam Howell.
Not Bailey Zappi. I will take Carson Strong's upside. I think that Carson Strong ends up in the better situation to actually play because of Jalen Hurts' limitations as a passer. What's ironic about the Eagles that's kind of gone unnoticed, that no one wants to talk about, is that behind Jalen Hurts could not be the most opposite style of quarterback. You've got Minshew Mania and Carson Strong. Neither one of them mesh with the style of play that Jalen Hurts does. So it kind of blows my mind. And I think they're kind of tipping their hand to us about what they're going to be doing next year. And they might not be looking for a dual threat. I mean, this offense, it just kind of amazes me, is kind of where I'm at with that. How they have such differing, you know, like even when Baltimore had Lamar Jackson, their backup was Huntley last year, and before that it was RG3. It was the same style of play. So it just kind of fascinates me looking at that. But I think that as far as Howell could definitely play this season, but I could definitely see a situation where Philadelphia says, you know, we traded all these assets. We're paying A.J. Brown $20 million a year. We got Devontae Smith. We got Dallas Goedert. We have got to be able to hit these guys in the wide open field. And they give him all that guaranteed money. I think they give him some of the highest guaranteed money out of all the UDFAs.
Yep.
So I have no problem taking him with like the back half of this round. Though I do have a guy in mind that I'm going to pick here in a minute, and I'll tell you why. So
all right. Well, I am zoned in for your pick. I will just say Carson Strong is a very interesting play that he went to Philadelphia, like you said. Minshew has a little elusivity to him. He's kind of one of those guys that just goes off the rails for a couple games. I think he's a little bit of a faster Nick Foles. He has that mentality where he can just zone it in for like 1 or 2 games and just absolutely like make you look really good. He did it last year, and then he goes back to being who he really is, which is a backup quarterback. As far as Carson Strong goes, Carson Strong was a guy that I preached for a lot of this year.
Yep.
I liked his talent coming out of Nevada. I hated the fact that he has no mobility. He has torn ACLs. He is pretty
He's
much
got my
just
he's got my grandpa's knees.
yeah. Yeah, he's just one bad sack away from never walking again, pretty much. And that's not even an understatement. Like, this guy was told he shouldn't play football last year, and he still did. Which, I mean, good on him, because I think that's a ballsy ass move.
Yeah.
Anyways, Carson Strong has one of the, for lack of a better words, strongest arms in this draft class. And what can you say when you have a lot of weapons, you have a decent offensive line, and you have a guy with a cannon?
Yeah.
Just try it out. That's what you can say. If it
I'll
goes
be lying
south,
if that's not one of the more entertaining. That's one of the I want to see how he does in the preseason, because sometimes you can kind of tell if they're going to stick around in the roster based on how that preseason goes.
Unless you're Nathan Peterman and you just have it in with John Gruden.
And Nathan Peterman always was a preseason superstar, and then he would just sink in his chair during the regular season. I don't know, man. It was just absolutely nuts.
I did a lot of write-ups on the Raiders preseason games, and Nathan Peterman was always the star of the game. He was out of nowhere. He was like one of the best running quarterbacks. He would throw it great. He just looked like this gritty ass player that just wanted to win the entire time. I was like, where's this Nathan Peterman been? And then you're like, oh yeah.
He did that every year in Buffalo. That's why McDermott was so enamored with him. And then it's like the real speed of the NFL comes, and he just can't hang.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. And then you realize, oh yeah, he's playing against the seconds, the thirds, and the guys that are gonna be cut.
He's playing against your local insurance salesman. Which there's no, if I bought insurance from a guy that played in the NFL preseason, I'd be like, more power to you. I'm just saying, they're not the cream of the crop. But
so tell us about this pick. Who are you going to pick?
So this is a guy that I like, further enhanced by Z over at Football Guys. He's been talking about him all week. I am very much in on Snoop Connor, not so much because of a talent standpoint, but more of the opportunity standpoint. He is drafted into a running back room that features James Robinson and ETN, and I just cannot. He's going to that room has a guy with a torn ACL and a guy with a ruptured Achilles. So as far as the opportunity to make an impact day one, this guy is it for me. And I'm getting him at the 401. Now I'm not taking him thinking he's going to be a superstar, but I don't think there's a better lottery ticket I'll scratch off in the 4th round than this guy or my prior pick in Tyler Beatty. Those are two guys entering running back rooms that I love because I think they can make an impact day one.
So I've got one guy that I want to ask you about, Tyler Algier. Where did he go in this draft? Or is he still on the board?
I believe he's still on the board. Oh, no, he went in the 2nd round, 210.
Okay. So that's one guy who is going off the rails right now. And it's simply because the Falcons cut Mike Davis.
Yeah.
And I mean, everybody's like, oh, why did you just say it? It's because Cordero Patterson last year was a utility man. He was technically a running back, and he did run he took a couple carries away from Mike Davis, but he was there to be a receiver running back. They need a big-bodied running back, and they said clearly Mike Davis is not that, and there's nobody else there. So it's Tyler Algier and Cordero Patterson. Tell me how you're looking at this Tyler Algier thing. It's opportunity, but I look at it kind of like, Desmond Ridder and even Drake London year one. It's opportunity, but is it really the opportunity that's going to push them over for their ADP?
I think that this is shaping up to just be Mike Davis 2.0. We look at this and we're saying Tyler Algier is going to be the guy that we're going to invest our 2nd round pick on. I'm trying to figure out where he was actually drafted. like pick wise. I want to say it was later.
Yeah, I want to say it was like a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, and I'm not banking on that. I'll take my 5th round pick guys and at the late 3, early 4, in the 4th round, because historically that's not where you want to put your money at. When he was drafted, you still have John Mechie, who was drafted higher, goes
Yep.
into a better spot. And then you got Alec Pierce, drafted higher, goes to a better
Oh my
offense.
God.
I
Alec
don't.
Pierce was still on the board.
Yes, he was still on the board at that point. So I think we're just kind of screwing ourselves here, taking him at 210. To each his own. I know sometimes we draft. The biggest mistake that I see in Dynasty all the time is people drafting for need. You
Yeah.
know, I did, the benefit of the doubt for me in this draft is I was able to draft best player available because I always do that, but also my roster allowed for that.
Mhm.
So I was able to get Wandale, who I love, in the 2nd round, but I just can't understand Algier at 210. Feel like maybe I would take the chance on him right before Howell. I'd take him above Howell's kind of where I'm at. Because
Yeah.
I think we're going to see them go into training camp, and here's what we haven't talked about yet with the quarterbacks too. These quarterbacks were all drafted. We haven't gone to camp yet. When these guys go to camp in July and they get there, I mean, I think Colin Cowherd said it best. Is like sometimes GMs will show up and they're like, "Oh fuck, we whiffed on that pick," because they see these guys throw and they see these running backs run, and it's like you're going to go make decisions to make your roster better in training camp because there's still going to be other players available. So of these quarterbacks, I laugh when I see like Corral in Carolina and Ritter in Atlanta, because they could start and the opportunities there, but I think when they get to camp, especially Ritter, I don't think he can make the high level throws that you need at the NFL level, and that's why he went so late in the draft.
Yeah. No, I mean, I listen, Desmond Ritter. So let me ask you quick. Did you already say if this was a super flex or a single QB?
It's super flex, yeah.
Super flex. Okay. So when you're at super flex, it's kind of telling about the quarterback class and how the community feels about it. How many quarterbacks are taken round 1, right?
Yeah,
Because if it was last year's class,
they'd all be gone.
the entire class would be gone by pick 7, pick 8 in a super
Yeah.
flex.
Yep.
Easily. You have Sam Howell going in the 3rd round. And still you have Bailey Zappi on the board. Still you have, a ton of possible talent on the board, but when you look at the top end talent at the quarterback position, like you said, Ritter kind of maybe went a little bit later, but at the end of the day, I don't like Ritter, his talent. I don't think he's going to be elevated by this Atlanta offense, and he needs a lot around him to elevate him. He's kind of like what I would think Jalen Hurts would be in Atlanta. He's good on his feet. He can make some throws. He's inaccurate the further he goes downfield. And at the end of the day, he's just somebody who's going to get you to a certain point, and then you're going to be looking for somebody else because, you can get you to the playoffs, but all he's going to get you is miserably beaten by the Buccaneers in the playoffs.
Yeah. I'll tell you my prediction. I don't wish this upon people, but I've seen enough of Mariota for me to tell you he's not going to finish the season probably. So I can see them either trading for Baker or Jordan Love. Those are my 2 scenarios I see playing out over training camp, because I just don't think I think that they're going to get to camp and they're going to realize they don't have these guys. I mean, they're either
Or
playing for CJ Stroud next year, or they're going to do something. I mean, they know that they cannot win with this roster.
that's exactly what I was going to say. Or they just play it out and let Ritter kind of just like bury himself, and they play for CJ Stroud, and Marcus Mariota is gone and relegated to either being a backup or being a grocery store guy at the end of this. Because
it's definitely possible. I mean, I would not put it past them. It's just funny because Ritter said he would not leave until he won a Super Bowl. So he didn't say he had to win it, and he didn't say if he would. He didn't say what would happen if they didn't want him, which is the more likely outcome.
yeah, Yeah, exactly. It's always fun to see these teams reach for these quarterbacks because you know why they didn't reach for them in the first round. Because they didn't want to pay these guys. They just wanted to have them around as like a second round pick and say, well, you know what? We tried them out. It didn't work. Back of the roster until we can cut you in a couple
Yeah.
years.
I mean, yeah, it's just comical. In other quarterback news, I mean, that's kind of what I got for this draft. Is there anything else you wanted to add? Because I did want to talk about your 49ers next. And the
Oh, yeah.
reports
Go for it. Go
and
for
the
it.
reports I saw today that we have talked about, that the 49ers coaches have been less than impressed with what they have seen from Trey Lance. Is this smoke or is this fire?
I have not seen these reports. I would say this is probably smoke. At the end of the day, you don't trade 3 first round picks. I listen, it's not just because it's my team. I think that there is definitely some smart people that run this organization. You don't trade 3 picks for a guy that you don't have the utmost certainty can make it.
So this is the guy. So this is Matt. This report was leaked by Matt Lombardo, who's a national reporter, and he says sources close to him have said staff has been continually underwhelmed by second-year quarterback Trey Lance.
Yeah, I'm reading that right now. Yeah, well, I mean, shit. I wouldn't be underwhelmed by him, but at the end of the day, I don't know what the fuck they're trying to put playbook in with him. I mean, you saw it with the 2 games that he was in there. Like they tried to change it up. They tried to go deeper. I think it's more smoke than anything else. But at the end of the day, if we're really talking about Jimmy Garoppolo continually being the 49ers quarterback, then holy shit.
You're not gonna like
We gotta figure something out in this next draft.
you're not gonna like my take here. Here's the thing that's gone unnoticed. That report leaked today. You know what else leaked today by Pro Football Talk?
What's that?
Is that talks with Deebo Samuel have turned around and Deebo Samuel is refollowing them and the
Oh yeah.
fence is being mended. I don't think that those two are separate. I think that Deebo is getting assurances that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be back this season. And I think that Deebo possibly has had issues with who's throwing him the football in San Francisco. Now that's a conspiracy. I have no proof behind that. But it's odd to me that on the same day that there's rumors that that fence is being mended, that this report comes out.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. I mean, listen, if I were to choose between Trey Lance right now and Jimmy Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel, I'd throw Deebo Samuel and Jimmy Garoppolo on the next boat to somewhere else. Because to be honest with you, I'm not impressed by Jimmy Garoppolo anymore. And Deebo Samuel, my friend, please, just if you aren't going to bring your negative ass energy around and you can't, I mean, I don't see why he would hate it. When you look at the 2 games that he played with Trey Lance, he scored on fucking big touchdowns in both of them. He scored an 80-yard touchdown in one of them, and he had a big play in another. Like, why wouldn't you want that? Like, Trey Lance is what you want if you're really trying to be like, okay, I want to be a receiver. Because he doesn't need to be throwing short. You need to be airing it out with him. So when I look at these reports that I'm looking at right now, I'm like thinking to myself, if you were Deebo Samuel and your main case is I don't want to be banging up my body as a running back anymore, why would you want Jimmy Garoppolo there? Jimmy Garoppolo can't air it out. Jimmy Garoppolo is literally one of the main reasons that manufactured touches exist because he can't seem to get the ball in the correct position ever. Like, if you watch George Kittle fucking catch the ball with this guy, it's literally all the way up here. He's got to go up there with his big old arms and bring that thing in.
That's funny. See, I actually like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that he's a starter, but he's not a superstar. And that puts the 49ers in a predicament because to me it's kind of like you don't want to throw Jimmy Garoppolo to the side until you know that Trey Lance is it, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
I know that
essentially
you
the
would
game they're playing.
probably, and here's the situation I see playing out. So I'm actually going to be a buyer of Jimmy Garoppolo over the next couple weeks. I think we might see one more season of Jimmy Garoppolo for one reason only. Because the 49ers think that he gives them the best chance to win. And if they put Trey Lance in and the experiment goes wrong, they have no first round pick next year. So their pick would ultimately be a very high pick. And that's going to make the heat in that building a lot higher because John Lynch and them traded those 3 picks to move to get Trey Lance.
Yeah. And here's something for you. They had the opportunity to get rid of Deebo Samuel, get in there and get some playmakers to help out Trey Lance that want to be there, and they passed up on it because their ego said, oh, he's worth more than a first and a third, even though A.J. Brown went for a first and a third. And at this point has had a more electric 3 seasons than Deebo's had just as one.
One season, yeah.
Yeah. For so at the end of the day, they got effed by the market.
Yeah, so the Cowboys.
Go for it.
Them and the Cowboys. I mean, the Cowboys were the biggest losers of the whole offseason. They literally traded away their best receiver to the Browns for a 3rd-round pick because they thought they were overpaying him. And now the market's completely flipped to where they're walking around like, oh, we didn't realize that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. I actually think that this is going to be the last season of Deebo and Jimmy G. And I think that Deebo's going to move on next season because I think it all comes down to the fact that they don't have the control for their 2023 one, and they'd rather go all in now. And then if, they're going to give Trey Lance his opportunity, and then that way they might be thinking they can save their jobs by getting the next quarterback the next year if they have a really bad season with Trey Lance.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting take. And it falls back to them saying at one point they were thinking about putting Trey Lance in for the playoffs because Jimmy is just god awful in the playoffs. If you don't know, his ratio for touchdowns to interception is 2 to 3. This guy is terrible. And he's somebody there that they can trust. They think they can trust to not fuck it up, but he can't win them anything. At the end of the day, if they're not winning by their defense, their special teams, and Deebo Samuel absolutely running wild on the Dallas Cowboys, they wouldn't have been in the NFC Championship game. Make no mistake about it. Jimmy G threw an interception that could have cost them a game in that Cowboys.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now let me ask you this. Let's say the season goes by, and we'll assume Jimmy G is the starter the season. They make the playoffs. They get bounced early on, okay?
Mm-hmm.
TB12 becomes available. Do you take TB12 or do you start Trey Lance that 2023 season?
Oh, unfortunately, you have to start Trey Lance.
Because you drafted him number 3. That's what I think.
Yeah,
just making sure you're on the same page because that's your team. You're more in the know, but I figured I'd ask you.
So, since we're talking about teams here, let's talk about your Buffalo draft. Buffalo draft wasn't too bad at all. There's a couple highlights. One guy I actually wanted to talk about was back end guy Khalil Shakir. Do you think that he has any chance of pushing Gabe Davis for that job?
No, I don't. I think that, Jeff Bell's a guy I like a lot in this space, and I follow him a lot. He's a big Gabe Davis fan, but he's not big on Crowder like I am. I think Crowder is going to take over in the slot, and Josh Allen loves him some slot receivers, and I think Crowder is anything but washed up. So if we're trying to buy assets for 3rd or 4th round picks, I will sell a Khalil Shakir to go get a Jamison Crowder.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting take. I mean, I did ride Jamison Crowder to a championship 2 years ago, and it was fun. It didn't translate to the next year, and I didn't really think it would. But I mean, he obviously has talent in the slot.
Yeah.
You're just expecting him in PPRs to get targeted 12 times. And I don't know if that's going to happen with Josh Allen. I don't know if Josh Allen is quite the dump off quarterback just yet to make Jamison Crowder relevant. But I mean, I wouldn't mind taking a flyer if it was there, in the 4th round on a Khalil Shakir. Just kind of, I kind of did that a little while back, and it backfired on me because I thought Isaiah Hodgins could have been something at some point because just his frame, but he always had injury problems. So that's kind of the way I look at Khalil Shakir. This is a guy who is going to have an opportunity in a big offense that values its receivers and doesn't really value its running backs and has a cannon-armed quarterback. So I look at that and I was just like, that could be a really, really sneaky 4th-round pick there. Say Jamison Crowder goes down because he did have injury problems in the past. Yeah. Say even Gabe Davis goes down. I mean, I know there's a lot of hype behind Gabe Davis right now, but say
he could go down. Yeah. It's possible. I'll tell you this. Over the last 2 years, Jamison Crowder has had 51 catches and 60 catches. And then in 2019 was his peak. He had 78 catches. The last 2 years, Cole Beasley had 170 catches when Josh Allen broke out in 2020, and then 107 targets, 82 catches, and then back in 2021, 112 targets, 82 catches. Almost 1,000 yards 2 years ago when Josh Allen broke out, and then almost 900 yards last year. All those targets are gone and up for grabs, and people are assuming it's going to go to Gabe Davis, but I'm telling you, Josh Allen loves the slot. I've read that numerous times from my favorite beat reporter in Joe Biscaglia. And I'm telling you, this is the sleeper that you want this year is Jamison Crowder. I will put my stamp of approval, and it's probably going to be a my guy as we get closer to the season, assuming he's healthy.
Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to that. I still have him on my roster. I kept him on there on my dynasty roster, so hopefully he picks up. But yeah, that's a good point. Cole Beasley has been one of the top guys for a long time in that Buffalo offense. So let's just roll down a couple names. Tell me how you like it, how you like the scheme fit, and where you're thinking they're going to be picked up and where you would draft them. So I'm going to start off with a guy we've already talked about, even if it was just not really full on talking about it. Sky Moore. Obviously, he lands in Kansas City. Big role to fill. I mean, last year we had 111 receptions for Tyreek Hill. We don't expect that to all translate over. But what are you looking at from this guy? Where are you looking for his target range to be? What are you looking for his output for his first fantasy season? And do you think he's a better dynasty guy right now, or do you think he could be drafted and redraft as well?
I'm more on Juju and Kelsey this season. I think Sky Moore is going to be a good fit. I'm just not so sure it's going to pay off this year. I think as far as expectations, I would expect some form of like a McCole Hardman or Byron Pringle type season last season. It's not going to wow you. It's not going to be like, oh my gosh, this guy's terrible. But his cost is too hot to handle at 109 for me. From a pure talent standpoint, I mean, like I said, in my draft, he went ahead of George Pickens. I can't do that. That's not going to work for me. So, I would take him above Matt Corral, who went 112. So I think the highest I could take Sky Moore would be 112. And that's assuming that, that's ahead of Jahan. I'd rather have Dotson at this point. I think Dotson is going to fit that Washington team a lot better than a Sky Moore. I think Sky Moore's got some competition for targets, and I actually think that Clyde might get more volume than we think we've seen in years past, because I think they made a real conscious effort towards the end of last season to really work on not having to hit the deep ball every play.
I like that take. Just to go on a Clyde Edwards-Helaire thing, it's interesting that you say that. I was on a podcast yesterday, and I was talking about how I liked that Clyde Edwards – I liked the Chiefs' focus last year on making their offensive line, really like a bruising offensive line. Like you get in Creed Humphrey, you get in Joe Tooney, Orlando Brown Jr., all these guys that came from run-heavy offenses, and you brought it in. And I was actually really high on Clyde Edwards-Helaire last year. I was saying, oh, you might as well go grab him and stuff, because he's bound to have a big year with this new focus. But this year, with getting rid of Tyreek, you have more of a short game guy in Juju Smith-Schuster. And, Ronald Jones is kind of a sneaky pick if you're looking at him in like the 20th round, 19th round, stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if he's going to fall that far, but if you're really looking at a guy who has a 900-yard season under his belt, is a very hard guy to bring down, just has had a fumble history in the past.
Yeah.
This is kind of a team that you could take a lot of flyers on and maybe something cashes in for you, especially with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Ronald Jones. Another name is maybe even Isaiah Pacheco, somebody that you can maybe even just, stash as an undrafted guy on your taxi squad. This is a team that I think could be turning a corner in their offense. I don't know if it's going to be full-blood, like 50-50 or maybe even like 52-48, but I think that they're turning a corner and maybe going towards a little bit run-centric, maybe slowing down the offense for Patrick Mahomes a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Don't draft Darrell Williams, though, because Darrell Williams is not a chief. We've had that conversation. I still see people drafting him in startups, and I'm like, guys, he's not a chief. He's not what you think he is. These are not the droids you're looking for.
What's funny is how many people drafted Darrell Williams last year thinking it was Damian Williams?
Now, I was high on Darrell Williams last year, and it paid off big time. Now, my biggest problem is now I'm stuck with him, but he did help me get to the playoffs in several leagues last year. So, yeah, I'm with you. I think Rojo's fine. I really just think this is the season that we're going to see Clyde not get injured, and I think it's going to be a bigger season than we want to admit. And based on his cost, I'm going to go in at his cost right now because I was high on him coming out. I wasn't 101 high. That was Jonathan Taylor all day. And then I was into J.K. Dobbins, and I wasn't so much into Swift as much. I missed on that one. My top two were really Dobbins and Jonathan Taylor coming out. So, but Clyde was right there.
So I just want to do this real quick. Currently in standard ECR for Fantasy Pros, Sky Moore is number 56. Right behind him, Kenny Golladay, Jacoby Myers, Christian Watson, Jameson Williams, Jahan Dotson, Landry, Beckham, Fuller, Robbie Anderson, your boy Pickens.
What's funny?
Crowder, David Bell.
Crowder, see, I'd take Crowder over him.
But that just shows the presence of being a Kansas City Chief. Like that's the bad side of a landing spot, because sometimes it makes you draft somebody way higher than they're supposed to be, right?
Dude, I feel like we are just assuming, and I've seen Josh Larkey, who I also respect a lot, talk about this. We are just crucifying Kenny Golladay. We're talking about a guy who had back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons just a couple seasons ago, and then we're going to knock him because Matt Stafford got hurt, and then he got hurt his final year in Detroit. Then he comes over to New York and gets shackled with one of the worst offenses I've ever seen historically. We are just crucifying this guy. If I have way too much Kenny Golladay now, because it is like, well, I can take a second round John Mechie, or I can take Kenny Golladay. I'm going to take Kenny Golladay. I'm going to take whoever's. I will take my 211, 212 pick, and I'll cash in on Kenny Golladay all day. The fact that Sky Moore is ahead of Kenny Golladay to me is mind-boggling.
I mean, listen, I was never a big Kenny Golladay fan. I always thought he was more of a one-trick pony type of guy. But I do agree with you in the sense that if you have the difference between, rolling the dice on a 211 and getting a guaranteed number one locked in 4 year, $72 million guy who is going to get opportunity, yeah, I'll go for that guy. But as far as Kenny Golladay goes, we've talked about it before. I'm big on Kenny Golladay at a certain price. If it comes down to asking Kenny Golladay in the 11th round, I'll probably pass and say, I'll take the chance that Will Fuller finds a team. But if we're talking about
what's up? I just can't believe he's not on a team yet.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe he's not a Brown yet. But I mean, as far as like if Kenny Golladay, I picked up Kenny Golladay in the 15th round in a draft, and I was thinking about it. I was just like, people are really down on Kenny Golladay to a point where they're letting a number one wide receiver slide to the 15th round. Like, he's my backup, but he's still a number one wide receiver.
He's gonna end up being your starter this season, so you got a good deal.
Yeah, I mean, if he plays out well for me, I'm gonna buy him in all best ball leagues, because I'm like, for the bust or the boom weeks that I get, I'm gonna be through the roof winning games, because he does offer that. He offers that, real spike week opportunity. But I mean, obviously the downside has been that we've seen that he's in this Giants offense that somewhat seems like it's not going anywhere.
Let me ask you one more question. I'm going to share my screen one more time because this is comical to me. There's a guy that was drafted ahead of Sam Howell, your boy, that still blows my mind. Look at pick 3-5. Do you want to break that pick down?
I can't see 3-5.
3-5 is Justin Ross. What are your thoughts on it? Justin Ross, who took 4 days to sign with the team.
Oh, man.
Not 4 days, but I mean, he didn't get signed, I don't think, until like Monday. He was definitely not a priority UDFA.
Yeah, Justin Ross. Justin with a Y. And why are you doing that? You know why they're doing it? Is that the same guy who drafted Sky Moore?
The guy that drafted Sky Moore? No.
They're doing it because obviously they think that they're going to be smart and pick up on this Chiefs offense. Yeah, Justin Ross, I don't think he'll make it out of training camp. He's a great story, but at the end of the day, I mean, it seems like he missed out. You know what he reminds me of? Do you remember Sage Surratt out of Wake Forest last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he got drafted by the Lions, and I think like the 5th round or something. But he's one of those guys that, he could have come out earlier and been a 1st-round pick, but he waited a year, and people in Surratt's defense, he waited a year on the COVID year, so he got the whole rap of, you're going to get fucking pushed back a couple rounds because you didn't even play. But in Justin Ross's, unfortunately, he got stuck with the Clemson offense without Trevor Lawrence and
DJ Uiagalelei.
Oh, can we have a moment of silence for all of his Devi owners?
I mean, I don't know who to feel more sorry for, DJ Uiagalelei or Spencer Rattler. I mean, at least Rattler is going to redeem himself to play this season. They both have a shot, but both of those, I don't think those stocks are ever going to recover.
Yeah, I mean, you went into the year thinking Spencer Rattler, I've got the number one quarterback, and you came out of the year going like, he went where?
I was never a big Rattler fan, but the biggest mistake I made was the homer pick of Adrian Martinez, and it was just a similar epic fall. Like, I took him after his freshman year, he looked really good, and then similar to Nebraska football, just looked like crap the second time you started getting your hopes up.
Oof. Yeah. I mean, I'm a Cal fan, so I'm never really hyped up too much for college football.
Yeah, I'm with you.
But anyways, this was a great episode and got to chit chat and banter about some of the better picks out there. But Justin, I'm going to pass it to you because we have some big news coming out of Dynasty Brews, and I think that we might more or less be entering the sphere of some of the upper echelon guys, in the sense that we're going to be getting a couple things here. We're going to try and turn ourselves a little bit more into the professional aspect, obviously, because we are professionals, right?
Exactly. They're more professional than us, having beers on the clock. But I got to tell you, big things are coming, and I couldn't be more excited about it. Well, hopefully next Friday I'll be able to share that with you guys. But we are going to take the step from dial-up internet to broadband internet pretty soon.
Wow. Oh man. When I had dial up, I was just sitting at the computer going, God damn, when is this thing gonna load? And when you get that box, you're just like, whoa.
Hopefully next Friday we will have something. Well, hopefully next Thursday I'll have some news to share, and we can build upon this. But it's a lot of hard work that we're putting into this.
Yes, sir. We're putting tons of hard work into it, and we actually have some really cool interviews coming up. We have some cool guests coming on in the near future. So you get to see our pretty faces, but you also get to see some others, and we will try and limit the amount of Justins that we had.
Let's bring Halsey back. That way we can get 3 Justins.
Halsey is always welcome back.
Yeah.
Halsey is always welcome back. He is a Devi genius. He is doing a lot of good stuff over at the Dynasty Nerds. But anyways, let's wrap this up. Justin, tell us what you're working on. Tell us where the fans can find you right now. And yeah, what's your plug?
Yeah, man, just doing the typical stuff. I am working on a spotlight article for Boston College's quarterback. And aside from that, I am just grinding the prediction strike stuff. Still pushing the Terry McLaurin hype train and all things Washington, or whatever, the Washington football, whatever they are.
The Washington Football Commanders of the Redskins,
the Washington
football team.
I might just start calling them the Washington Wentzes.
The Washington Wentzes. Yeah, that will be the yearly name. They'll be changing it next year.
I still can't get over their high school Letterman jackets that they have.
It just looks like they were just like, oh, what do we do? Oh, you know what? Heinz is a sponsor of us. You want to put their colors on there? You want to put some mustard and ketchup on there?
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen like a product relaunch go as poorly as that.
I mean, let's face it. Dan Snyder is really putting a lot of effort into this, guys. Like he has thrown his best team out there for this one, and yeah, we should really give a round of applause to Dan Snyder because he has done it.
The worst owner in football.
Yeah. The Washington Dan Snyders, hopefully they will have another team next year.
I feel for you Redskins fans. I'm not against you. I think your team's going to be good.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You know what's funny living in DC is they've never gotten rid of the Redskin memorabilia. Well, anyways, guys, it's been another great episode. As usual, stay frosty, brew.